When it comes to communication, the way a woman carries herself in conversations with men says everything about her confidence, self-worth, and standards. A high-value woman doesn't just speak to be heard, she communicates in a way that commands respect, builds connection, and sets boundaries without ever losing her femininity or strength. Keynote number 1 is all about clarity, and this is where most people underestimate the power of communication. A high-value woman knows that the way she speaks sets the tone for how she is treated, and she refuses to hide behind vague words, half answers, or confusing statements. She doesn't play the guessing game because she understands that unclear communication invites unclear treatment. When she speaks to a man, she makes sure her words line up with her intentions. If she's interested, she shows it without being over the top, and if she's not, she makes it clear without leaving a trail of mixed signals. This clarity protects her energy because she's not wasting time trying to clean up the mess that comes from sending the wrong message. Men respect a woman who is direct because directness shows that she knows who she is and what she wants, and it removes the space for misunderstandings or manipulation. Clarity doesn't mean harshness, and it doesn't mean speaking in a cold or robotic way. It means choosing words that reflect her truth without sugarcoating it beyond recognition. A high-value woman can say no without guilt, and she can say yes without hesitation. That's because her clarity comes from her values. She knows what aligns with her life and what doesn't. So when she talks, there's no fog, no hesitation, no second guessing in her tone. This kind of communication makes men feel safe around her because they never have to wonder where they stand. A man doesn't need to read between the lines with her because she speaks in a way that makes her position obvious and that actually builds attraction. Why? Because men admire certainty, and certainty is magnetic. When she talks, she avoids manipulation. She doesn't use silence to punish or sarcasm to hide what she's really feeling. Instead, she addresses issues head-on in a way that shows maturity. If something bothers her, she doesn't bury it under passive-aggressive remarks. She communicates it calmly and directly. That doesn't mean she raises her voice or argues endlessly. It means she expresses what she feels and what she expects without fear of how it will be received. This level of communication demands respect because men quickly learn they can't push her into playing games. Clarity also comes through in how she expresses appreciation. When she values something, she says it. When a man does something thoughtful, she acknowledges it instead of assuming he should know she's grateful. This kind of clear expression not only shows emotional intelligence but also deepens connection because men feel recognized and not left in the dark about where they stand. Another part of clarity is knowing how to articulate needs without sounding needy. A high-value woman doesn't hint and hope he figures it out. She doesn't drop small comments expecting him to piece together the bigger picture. If she wants quality time, she says it. If she needs space, she communicates it. This doesn't make her demanding. It makes her honest, and honesty creates trust. Men don't feel like they're walking through a minefield with her because she removes the mystery of unspoken expectations. Even in disagreements, she stays grounded in clarity. She doesn't let emotions twist her words into weapons. She doesn't exaggerate or accuse without reason. Instead, she communicates facts, feelings, and boundaries in a way that is firm but not destructive. That's powerful because clarity in conflict separates high-value women from those who get lost in drama. She's not interested in winning an argument. She's interested in building understanding. Ultimately, the way she talks with clarity is a reflection of the clarity she already has inside herself. She's not looking for a man to define her or validate her, so she doesn't need to play with her words to secure his attention. Her self-worth guides her voice, and that's what makes her communication so impactful. Every time she speaks, her words say, "I know who I am, I know what I stand for, and I refuse to compromise my truth for anyone." When it comes to setting boundaries, a high-value woman understands that it's not about being cold, defensive, or aggressive. It's about protecting her energy and showing others how to treat her. The way she communicates those boundaries is calm, confident, and composed because she knows boundaries are not walls to push people away. They are gates that decide who has the privilege of coming closer. When she talks to men, she doesn't have to raise her voice, argue endlessly, or justify her standards. She simply states them with authority and allows her actions to reinforce them. This calm approach sends a strong message because men quickly realize she's not a woman who can be pressured or persuaded into lowering her standards. She makes it clear that her time, her emotions, and her body are valuable, and if a man wants access to any of those, it has to be earned through respect and consistency. Boundaries are not just about what she says no to, but also what she says yes to. A high-value woman knows that setting boundaries is also about welcoming the right behaviors and rewarding respect. For example, if a man is consistent, reliable, and communicates honestly, she acknowledges that and encourages it because she's not just focused on correcting negative behavior, she's focused on reinforcing the positive. But when disrespect enters the picture, whether through words, tone, or actions, she doesn't sit in silence and hope it gets better. She addresses it directly and early. This prevents small issues from turning into major problems because she values herself too much to allow patterns of mistreatment to build. The way she sets boundaries is free from drama. She doesn't explode out of frustration or wait until she's had enough to finally speak her mind. Instead, she communicates consistently with steady firmness, so men always know where they stand with her. That level of self-control is powerful because it shows she's not controlled by her emotions. She's guided by her principles. A man respects that because he sees that she won't get dragged into unnecessary arguments or emotional games. He understands that her calmness is not weakness, but strength, and it pushes him to rise to her level. Another important part of boundary setting is that she doesn't over-explain herself. She doesn't feel the need to give a long speech about why she won't tolerate certain behavior because her boundaries are rooted in self-worth, not in convincing others to agree with her. If she says she won't accept being spoken to disrespectfully, that's it. If she says she values honesty and won't stay in situations where it's missing, she means it. This lack of over-explaining shows that her boundaries are not negotiable, they are a requirement. In romantic dynamics, a high-value woman knows how to balance softness with firmness. She can communicate affection, kindness, and care, but when a line is crossed, her tone shifts to show that she takes herself seriously. She doesn't beg for respect because she knows begging for something automatically lowers its value. Instead, she carries herself as if respect is the minimum, and she removes herself from any situation where it's not present. This is how she communicates boundaries without ever needing to plead, argue, or convince. Men actually find this kind of boundary setting attractive because it shows a level of self-awareness and self-control that is rare. A woman who knows how to calmly enforce her boundaries communicates maturity, and that maturity makes a man see her differently. He knows she's not just someone who wants attention, she's someone who requires respect, and if he wants to be in her world, he has to meet her standards. Even in small conversations, she practices this principle. If a man interrupts her, she continues to hold her space until she's finished speaking. If someone pushes her into doing something she's not comfortable with, she doesn't laugh it off to avoid awkwardness. She simply says no and holds her ground. This shows that boundaries are not just about big situations, they're about everyday moments where self-respect is either protected or compromised. Her boundaries extend beyond words, too. The way she carries herself, the way she reacts, the way she follows through when her boundaries are crossed, all speak louder than anything she could say. Men learn quickly that when she says no, it means no, and when she sets a limit, it's not up for negotiation. This consistency builds trust because men know they're dealing with someone who is steady, not someone who flips back and forth depending on mood or circumstance. Respect and kindness are the foundation of how a high-value woman speaks, But what makes her different is that she never sacrifices her self-respect in the process. She understands that treating others well does not mean tolerating everything, and being kind does not mean being weak. When she talks to men, her tone carries warmth and consideration because she knows respect earns respect in return. She listens without judgment, she communicates without belittling, and she makes the man she's speaking to feel heard and valued. But even as she extends this respect, she never bends so far that she loses herself. She doesn't put someone else on a pedestal at the expense of her own worth, and that balance is what makes her communication so powerful. When she speaks, she does not use her words to dominate or to control, she uses them to connect. That doesn't mean she hides her strength, it means she knows true strength doesn't require shouting, cutting someone down, or making them feel small. Instead, she respects the dignity of the person she's speaking with, even if she disagrees with them. A high-value woman can have a strong opinion and still deliver it in a way that doesn't attack or demean. This creates an atmosphere where men feel safe to express themselves honestly, and it builds deeper trust because her communication is built on mutual respect rather than competition. At the same time, she never mistakes kindness for compliance. She doesn't laugh at jokes that cross the line just to keep the peace. She doesn't stay silent when something feels wrong just to avoid tension. And she doesn't say yes when her heart says no. Her respect includes respect for herself, and she shows it by speaking up with confidence. If a man tests her boundaries, she responds with grace, but she responds firmly, leaving no doubt that she values herself too much to tolerate disrespect. This balance of kindness and strength is rare, and it's what makes her stand out. Men quickly recognize that her kindness is not an invitation to take advantage, but rather a reflection of her character. She's kind because she chooses to be, not because she's afraid to be anything else. That kind of kindness is powerful because it's backed by strength, and strength wrapped in kindness commands respect in a way that force never can. When she compliments, she does it sincerely. When she gives feedback, she does it constructively. When she disagrees, she does it without attacking. All of these small ways of communicating create an image of a woman who carries herself with dignity, and that leaves a lasting impression. Her respect shows up in how she listens as well. She doesn't interrupt to make herself heard over someone else. She allows space for the other person's thoughts, but she doesn't allow herself to be silenced either. She understands that listening is just as important as speaking, and that true respect means valuing someone else's perspective, even when it's different from her own. Men notice this because it shows that she values understanding more than winning, and that makes her presence calming and grounding. Even when emotions run high, she doesn't abandon her respect. In moments of conflict, she resists the urge to lash out with words she can't take back. Instead, she communicates her feelings with honesty and control, showing that kindness is not about avoiding hard conversations, but about handling them with maturity. A high-value woman knows that the way she speaks during conflict reveals more about her character than the way she speaks when everything is going well. That's why she keeps her self-respect intact no matter the situation. In day-to-day conversations, her words carry a subtle authority. She doesn't brag or boast, but the way she values herself is evident in the way she talks. She doesn't downplay her accomplishments to make others feel comfortable, and she doesn't exaggerate them to gain approval. She states her truth plainly, with humility and pride coexisting, and men respect that because it shows authenticity. Her kindness is never about pretending or performing. It's simply an extension of her inner confidence. By combining respect, kindness, and self-respect in every conversation, she communicates on a level that very few people reach. She shows that you can be soft without being stepped on and strong without being harsh. She proves through her words and her tone that kindness rooted in self-respect is one of the most attractive qualities a woman can carry because it sets the standard for how she will be treated while still honoring the humanity of everyone she interacts with. Expressing needs confidently without guilt or fear is one of the clearest signs of a high-value woman. because she understands that her desires, her feelings, and her expectations are valid and do not require justification to exist. When she talks to men, she doesn't dance around her needs or disguise them as hints. She communicates them openly, knowing that someone who genuinely values her will want to understand and meet them. She doesn't apologize for wanting clarity, for asking for respect, or for requiring effort, because she sees those not as demands, but as standards. This approach not only saves her from unnecessary frustration, it also filters out the men who are not aligned with her, leaving only those who are capable of respecting what she stands for. She understands that guilt and fear often silence people. Many avoid speaking their needs because they worry about being seen as too much, too demanding, or too difficult. But a high-value woman knows that silencing her needs is the fastest way to lose herself in a relationship. She refuses to shrink to keep someone else comfortable. When she speaks, her tone is confident but not hostile. If she wants more communication, she says it. If she needs consistency, she names it. If something bothers her, she brings it up without dancing around the truth. She doesn't wait until her frustration builds into resentment. She addresses things early, calmly, and directly, showing that her voice matters just as much as anyone else's. What makes her communication stand out is the way she removes shame from the equation. She doesn't feel guilty for needing attention, affection, loyalty, or honesty because she knows those are natural parts of a healthy connection. She doesn't apologize for being human, and she doesn't label her needs as burdens. Instead, she views them as a reflection of her standards, and communicating them becomes a form of self-respect. This perspective changes the dynamic with men because it makes her easier to understand. There's no guessing game, no hidden expectations, no silent resentment. She speaks up and gives the other person the opportunity to rise to the level she requires. At the same time, she doesn't express her needs in a way that demands or manipulates. She doesn't beg, threaten, or guilt trip because she knows those approaches only weaken her position. Instead, she communicates with calm confidence, making it clear what she values and what she will and will not accept. That balance of directness and composure makes men listen differently. They hear her not as someone complaining, but as someone who respects herself enough to speak with honesty. That respect commands attention and makes her voice carry more weight. By expressing her needs without fear, she also teaches men how to treat her. If she stays silent, she knows she's training them to overlook her feelings. But if she speaks up, she trains them to listen and adjust. This is why her confidence in communication is so powerful, because it becomes a guide for the kind of relationship she's building. She doesn't leave it to chance, and she doesn't hope someone just knows how to treat her. She makes it clear through her words and her consistency. Men often find this level of confidence refreshing because it removes confusion. They don't have to read her mind, decode her silence, or guess what she wants. She tells them, and that clarity builds trust. It shows she's mature enough to handle honest communication, and it challenges them to do the same. Rather than causing conflict, it creates alignment because both people are on the same page. Her ability to express her needs without guilt also protects her from settling. Many women stay quiet out of fear that their needs will push someone away, but a high-value woman flips that perspective. She knows if her needs push someone away, that person was never right for her in the first place. This mindset gives her freedom because she's not trapped in the fear of loss. She would rather lose someone than lose herself. That truth shows up every time she opens her mouth to communicate clearly because her words say more than what she needs. They say she values herself enough to speak it. This kind of communication is not loud, it's not dramatic, and it's not filled with over-explaining. It's steady, calm, and grounded in self-worth. That calmness makes her needs feel reasonable and undeniable because she delivers them with a tone that leaves no doubt she means what she says. And in doing so, she builds a dynamic where her needs are not only respected but also prioritized because men know they're dealing with someone who knows her worth and refuses to bury it under silence. Listening attentively without allowing herself to be talked over is a skill that instantly separates a high-value woman from everyone else because it shows a rare balance of presence and self-respect. When she talks to men, she doesn't just hear words, she listens with full attention, giving space for the other person to express themselves without interruption or judgment. This makes men feel valued because attentive listening communicates interest, patience, and emotional intelligence. But what makes her stand out is that she doesn't lose her own voice in the process. She knows that listening doesn't mean silence forever, and respect in conversation is mutual. She gives space generously, but she also holds her own space firmly. Her listening is intentional. She doesn't wait just to reply, she listens to understand. She pays attention not only to the words, but also to the tone, the pauses, and the emotions behind them. This creates deeper conversations because men feel she actually gets them rather than just nodding along. This ability to listen attentively builds trust, since it shows she cares about more than just being heard. She cares about connection. But as much as she values listening, she never equates it with losing her position. If someone tries to dominate the conversation, talk over her, or dismiss her thoughts, she doesn't let that slide. She calmly reclaims her space because she understands that mutual respect means both voices matter. She knows that allowing herself to be drowned out by louder voices is not kindness, it's self-neglect. So she balances empathy with assertion. For example, if a man interrupts her mid-sentence, she doesn't get angry or shut down. She calmly finishes her thought, signaling that what she has to say carries importance. This balance teaches others how to engage with her. They learn that she will listen with patience, but she will also expect the same in return. That expectation communicates value without her needing to demand it, because her actions make it clear that she won't shrink to keep the peace. Her ability to hold both listening and speaking roles equally makes conversations with her refreshing. Men feel comfortable being open because she won't rush to judgment, but they also respect her because she asserts her perspective without hesitation. This combination of empathy and strength makes her words land with even more impact. When she speaks after listening deeply, her voice carries authority because it's clear her words are thoughtful and not reactive. A high-value woman also uses listening as a way to filter. She listens carefully to what men say because words often reveal values, intentions, and priorities. She doesn't ignore red flags or excuse troubling statements. She takes note, and her attentive listening allows her to see patterns quickly. But she doesn't just gather information passively, she balances it with her own voice, asking questions, clarifying, and expressing her own views so that the conversation remains equal. This keeps her from falling into one-sided dynamics where her presence is reduced to silence. In conflicts, her ability to listen and still hold her ground becomes even more powerful. Many people in disagreements talk over each other, raising voices in a battle to be heard. She avoids this trap by giving the other person space to speak, which often diffuses tension. But once it's her turn, she makes sure her perspective is heard fully, calmly, and firmly. She doesn't compete for volume, she competes with composure, and that composure makes her voice impossible to ignore. In everyday conversations, her balance shows up in small ways. If someone tells a story, she listens intently, but when it's her turn to share, she expects that same attention back. If it's not given, she doesn't pout or sulk, she simply redirects, making it clear that her presence deserves equal weight. This quiet confidence reinforces her value because she shows she won't settle for being background noise in anyone's life. Men often find this incredibly attractive because it shows a level of self-awareness and balance that few people master. She can create safety by listening deeply, but she can also create respect by refusing to disappear in conversation. It communicates that she's both nurturing and strong, empathetic and assertive, calm and confident. This balance makes men not only listen more carefully to her, but also adjust the way they speak, because her standard for conversation raises theirs.